Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues, the President of the Nigerian Librarians Association, the Chairman of the Association of University Librarians of Nigerian Universities. I'm breaking protocol already, so please let me stand on existing protocols because I know that a higher authority here, I do recognize you, please. Now, it's good to be here and to be talking about research data management in Nigerian university libraries. I consider it a great opportunity for us to be able to talk face to face and to look at how we are handling research. Not only research, but the data itself. From the speeches of the chairperson, we have manage data that we have. But this made us up as a nation that we have people who are accused of plagiarism, those who are repeating researches, but for now, we'll be looking at this outline. So we'll look at the state of Nigerian universities. We'll try to understand what research data management is, because I thought that is the crux. Probably some of us get phobic when you hear something that is unfamiliar. Then what benefits stand for us as university libraries? What are the imperatives of research data management? Then librarians and the research office will look also at how to overtake the randomization of research. When we come there, we will try to define what we mean by randomization. Then human capital development. What next is trying to define our next practical steps as a group, and then the conclusion. Now, research data management is currently on the table. In other words, there's so much discussion about and around research data. Yesterday, you were also talking about PID, persistent identifiers. You begin to hear so much about all this tagging metadata instead of what we have already known in the past. So we are in a period of transition. We are in a period where not only our hearts, but our minds, our will must be ready to change. Not just change, but to make an impact by utilizing the potentialities, the opportunities that we have. Also, we understand that in the global West, in Europe, in America, they've gone ahead of us in deciding on how to manage the data. Of course, you know that for them, carrying out research is a normal thing. But for us, there are several interpretations to research. So they spend so much, and in fact, if you are not able to attract research grants in many institutions, especially in the United States of America, it's very difficult for you to remain in the system. So they carry out researches that will bring about results that will impact, that will affect lives. And there are some of these grant awarding agencies that will also define what to do with your data. Some will inform that the data must be made available. So today we have people carrying out researches and they have dumped the data that they gathered somewhere so that if you want to replicate the study, if you want to scrutinize it, especially if some ethical infractions have taken place in the process of research in later years and that will affect the credibility of that granting organization, they have to be able to go back and review that data. So for them, it's a normal thing. But for us, for so many other reasons, we have a lower understanding and use of data. We have some reports about the usage of data in East Africa, in Southwest Nigeria, and particularly for East Africa, nearly 31% of librarians are engaged in research data management. So we know, and you know as well as I do, that in Nigeria, we have not systematically captured data, not to even talk of managing them. So you begin to see, like I was supervising some students last year or so, final year students, and after submitting his research project, and I was reading through, and I saw a state other than the state that he was writing from. And I said, was that an error? He said, yeah, it was an error. I said, okay. And you have to expunge everything, and you have to do everything all over. In other words, there is this plagiarism that becomes rampant because there is no reference point. We don't have a way that, okay, if students submit topics for research, you can go through the database and it will pick out similarities of even the titles. I have seen EagleScan designed for the Nigerian university system. And because of the politics of even plagiarism checkers, the global politics, you will discover that the EagleScan itself will not assess many of our own research reports. What I mean is that it will just pass you because it doesn't have sufficient database across the globe to be able to compare what you have written against what is already there. And when you have Turnitin and several others, there are certain biases because for some of us, we say, yes, we have plagiarism checker, just Turnitin and that is it. No. You see, what Turnitin does is to generate data from what is available, what is accessible, what is visible. So if, for instance, my work done in Nigeria is not captured, it's not made visible, as many of us gather data from our institutions, they are not on the web, they are not openly available, they are not digitized. So even if you want to pay for them, they cannot be visible. Now, if anybody checks against that, it will just give you a go ahead. Now, when I did my PhD and I was passed, one of the comments of the external examiner and my supervisor was that that was wonderful. The theoretical approach was quite innovative and all that. And I thought my head was swelling. That was on Friday. On Monday, I went to the library, I went to the acquisition center, office, and I noticed a book that was talking about the theoretical perspective, similar to the one that I used. And what I thought was novel, I now realized that it had gone out into the research world 5-6 years before even I made my defense. But you see, because it was not available to me, that time it was mainly manual. So everybody thought I was doing something good. So for many of us, we are local champions. And unless we are able to manage the data, the reports that we get, it will be difficult for us to be able to check this plagiarism, this repetition, and this unnecessary expense of energy. For instance, if I had been aware of that theoretical statement before then, probably I would have tweaked my own in a different way. It didn't nullify it, but I only worked according to what I knew. And so if we are going to be in a new digital age, then we have to sincerely be deliberate in our working to manage the data that we have. For some of us who are not fully digitized, it's going to be a deliberate, determined, courageous effort that pays for this generation and the generations to come. So we need to properly capture this data, to store them well, and to use them in the way that they should be used. Now, the state of Nigerian universities shows that many of us are operating hybrid systems. That's digital, manual, and if I ask how many libraries are fully digitized now, that you can do anything electronically, it may be very, very few, if there are any. But I appreciate our efforts. There have been several studies that have been carried out to show that we are making efforts, but we are not there yet. Now, the library management systems that we have been talking about, they are yet to be effectively deployed and exploited. And why have we not deployed this? One of the things is also, the Bible says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. If the head librarian is not knowledgeable about the facilities, about the management system, about the various interventions, it's difficult for that librarian to key into the deployment of technology, the deployment of anything that can enhance the growth, that can promote even your own output. And that is a major defect that many of us have. I want to challenge us that don't deploy anything if you yourself as the librarian, you cannot practically utilize. You cannot practically teach your staff. I want to challenge you to do that. If, for instance, you are going to deploy an institutional repository, you want to create it, I would want to see myself as the librarian, as the person that studies the documentation, identifies the appropriate program that will run my own system. Because of my own peculiarity, environmental peculiarity, then I can now ask the programmers and others, like, okay, you do this. let's do that. That was what we did when we were deploying the institutional repository, which was also the first in Nigeria. I had longed to have that. And we tried so many things. And since then, it has really helped us. Because that was the beginning of our capturing the local conference papers, the theses and dissertations. We were able to participate in the Carnegie-sponsored thesis and dissertation project, and so many other things before we now have a fire incident. So you, as the head librarian, you are busy, quite understandable. But you see, if you don't provide that leadership, if you don't show that, yes, you understand, they will go behind you and they will be mocking you. And they can frustrate your work. Let me tell you another example, illustration from my own life experience. When in 1993, I was appointed systems librarian, you know, computers were just coming because just 3 years before the 1992, the NUC brought Nigerian federal universities into the World Bank book project. And they gave each of the institutions 2 desktops. And we had Busicom, who was helping us with TeamLib. That time it was the sole proprietor of the information navigator for life is TeamLib. Some of you probably have heard about that. And we were doing good, but we had typists who were also being converted into the data capturing staff at that time. And the staff didn't know that I was in the other office that was demarcated. And they had a little challenge. And somebody from outside said, you people, you have the head, why don't you ask him? And you know what the data entry staff mentioned? They said, our guy is only have to change the clock on the screen that he knows. And they were right. As on that time, it was only just give me the screen, the desktop, I will go and change the clock and say, okay, this is the hour, this is the minute. But to try to do anything was far from me. But you know that has changed. I typed my PhD work. Every paper that I do now, I do it on my own. Many of the notices that I sent out as a university librarian, I typed for myself. You also know, when you are talking about data management, that is not every document that you give your typist to type. Because there are some that, some of the typists, for them, innocently, they expose your documents. And anybody, all it takes is, Anna, Sarah, how are you? And she's saying something. And these days, all you also need to do is, as you are chatting with Sarah, and you know that Sarah is doing something, there will be no flash, but you'll have captured something. So, it's not all, but there are some that you yourself have to practically be able to keep a copy, and when you are ready to dispatch, of course, it's already packaged. And it's not something that you just go out and say, okay, you go and deliver this. The necessary copies you give whoever will file. But at least it's not something that you don't know what is happening to the document. You give to a typist who has gone to the clinic and left everything right there. You went for a principal officer's meeting throughout the day, and everybody comes and then they see what you are transacting, which they should not even see. So these are some of the things that we are talking about library management systems to be effectively deployed and exploited. The exploitation here is not the negative notation, it's the positive understanding of exploitation, that we use this that we have effectively. All the models, try them out. Try them out. You know, when I started learning all these things, there were instances that the system crashed. Don't be afraid for the system to crash. If that is your fear, please allow it to crash. And when that was resolved, I deliberately crashed the system myself. And I know what I went through. It's not the subject of this talk, but it was restored. What are we saying? Is that the librarians must take the leadership role. You have to prove that you are in charge. You see, to be in charge is not by stamping your feet, by giving orders, by shouting of leadership by example. Leadership to show that if you want to do Yanga, I can do without you. You have to prove that. Otherwise, can I be modest by saying you are irrelevant? Do you also know, when you, for some of us who have been traveling abroad, when you go abroad, you will discover that the office of the university librarian is just small. You hardly will have a retinue of staff who will be chatting, who will be taking body and granite and all sorts of things there. You just have maybe somebody who will stand in and assist. But I think we have spoiled ourselves with this retinue of officers. And that's why we are also having problems. Because we are depending on them. I think that the time has come for all, Mr. Chairman and the executive, to take the lead in research data management. We have a critical role to play. And the collaboration and sharing of resources is imperative for the next phase of growth of Nigerian university libraries. I'm happy that the West and Central African Research and Education Network is working with us. I'm happy that we have Echo Connect. I'm happy that ABCUN, they are part of us. And I'm happy that there are funding being released and available from Tech Fund. We need to take advantage of all this. NULIB has a critical role to play because right from the beginning, all these collaborations are come through NULIB. And I hope, Madam Chair, that we will continue to grow this relationship. So, what is research data management? Essentially, is the curation of data, curation of research data. Because myself, I used to think, IDM, research data, and it is only Oyibo who used to talk about this thing. You know, I now realize that it's merely a collection, the care, the use, preservation, and sharing of data. That's according to the University of Reading, the UK. University of Sheffield explains that research data management is organization, which is our main job anyway, storage, which is what we do, and preservation of data. So research data management is not something that is strange, as it were, but the emphasis is what is now coming because of the various loopholes and dangers that we are beginning to have if we don't manage the data properly. All the data that we gather. You also know that since we were born, universities have been producing thesis, final year research projects, and we've been making great findings. And some of us have even scored A's in our research projects, isn't it? So where are the products of those A's? How many thousands, how many millions have we passed out? But has this changed our environment, our scholarship? The reason is that there has been never a collective, focused determination to bring this together to now see that, okay, in Ibadan, they research on this in engineering department. In Sokoto, they did the same thing. In ABU, they are doing the same thing. So what is the difference? Who knows? Maybe like my student I illustrated earlier, what was deposited in Ibadan is what somebody in another university went to just change the name. And you know, even when they change these days, they are not even smart enough. The acknowledgements will be there. And somebody who is not married will say, I dedicate it to my wife, to my children, and, you know, so many things like that. So we have a big challenge because they are depositing these things in the university library. So if we have lawyers there, and I'm sure there are, you know, they will say that you are an accessory to the crime. So how many of us have been accessories to the crime? That you didn't commit the crime yourself, but for ignorance or from some other reason, you connived because you accepted it. So we need to stop that because very soon you will discover that there will be some legislation that will now make it offensive for you to accept that without interrogating other institutional databases. So the creation of our own databases is a sine qua non. It's compulsory, it's necessary. But are there benefits for us at all, even if we engage and indulge in RDM, research data management? I think there are. One is that we will develop competencies in research data management. There will be better value and visibility of university to be enhanced by your own effort. So you are doing something in your own little corner in the library, but the entire university system is being projected and being promoted because of your own little effort. The third benefit is that we will now be able to integrate technology with research outputs and other library services. So it's not as if we are operating in silos, that we have serials collections, we have documents collections, we have special collections, that's non-governmental organizations, and then we have theses and dissertations. No, there will be an integration. And so when you interrogate, you query anything, you have what you already know as a federated search. So federal, it searches through the subsets of your database, and it will now bring out what you have and all the relationships. Just like you go online, you Google something, you know, in nanoseconds, you will get maybe 1 million, 2 million titles. Some of them are full text and direct, some are merely links to other documents in other databases. We need to get to that point that you cannot trace and say No, what you have presented, no problem, come to it, and that will be it. Let me tell you another experience that we had. I was on the postgraduate study board of our university while I was still in service, and many years back. Then we had a little problem. A lady was to graduate, and then at the board, we were informed that the external supervisor, who was going to be not supervisor, the external examiner, now turned back the project and said he could not assess this. And what was the reason? He said, I submitted this at the University of Birmingham so years, and I can see a replication, word for word, my work, PhD work in law. Now, as at that time, we didn't have institutional repository, we didn't have digitization of theses and dissertations, and even if we had, the work was submitted in the UK, not here. You know, in those days, there used to be dissertation abstracts from the US, not even UK. But we are now beginning to have a globalization, a shaking of hands of the various databases developed across the globe, especially institutionally. And that's the more reason why with technology, we need to sit down and agree that, look, we are going to have this, and we are going to deposit our own data into this. Anyway, if you want to hear the end of that story, you should know. But that's the sort of thing that happens. And that was noticed because that was the author. How many have gone on with that? And the person will come out and say, wow, done excellent. And the supervisor will not approve because the supervisor also has not accessed that submission in the UK. So you begin to see the need to control and to understand what we are pushing. Then what are the imperatives of research data management? One is the development of research competencies, as we mentioned. The other is the improved status of librarians. Nobody will despise you. When they see that the words of our police, you are on top of your game. When you are on top of your situation, you will be respected. And you will not be crying that they are relegating librarians and they don't even respect us. No. Yeah. Respect is not given, it's earned. Then you'll be able to interact more with our colleagues who are academics, because some of them think that because you are a librarian, you are a PhD holder, you are a professor, your own is different from them. No, you need to prove it. You know? Like the Bible says again, by their works, we shall know them. Then we also develop collaborative knowledge and skills. We are able to work with other institutions. When I was doing my PhD and I had opportunity to travel for a conference in the UK, I took the opportunity to ask the librarian there that, please, I want to access some of your documents. Say, yeah, it's free. And he gave me access to the library to make photocopies. And what he told me, he said, Stephen, you know the rules. That's copyright rules. How many pages you can copy and all that. That was then. But at least a guide was given. But I had to travel. You're also aware of interlibrary lending, British Lending Library. You know all those that will make requests and pay for them, and then British Library will photocopy and send to us. The Nigerian Committee of University Librarians in the 80s set up this regionalization of libraries so that they will specialize in gathering materials in different disciplines. For us in JAWS, it was technology. So if we needed anything other than that, we would either go to ABU or to University of Makurdi at that time. Sometimes we send people to Ibadan. They have to go physically. We don't need to do that. Do we have to do that today? No. All we do is we go online. If they have it, if they don't have it or it's not visible online, you call your colleague and then you say, we are looking for this. And the colleague will say, I will ask my system librarian to get back to you. For some of us that have contacted on some other project, I want to thank you for linking me to your colleagues, your junior colleagues to do that. Then ability to raise funds, that is very, very important. When some of these funds are raised, they actually are deployed into other uses. When we started at the University of JAWS, digitization, at that time I was the head of the documents section, and all we started doing was, that was 98, 99. We were just digitizing the title of government publications and the research projects that were deposited in the library, because the projects were deposited. And I also happened to be in charge of the web team. So we will put them on the web in Excel. Now, what I want to bring out there is that you don't have to be supersonic in your knowledge of technology. Start where you are. So when some visitors came and they were interested in funding the university, they came from the US, that's the Carnegie Corporation of New York. And somebody was so excited, said, you must come to the library. We have something developing there. They came and we showed them what little we were doing. And this was just a person. The next thing is, next month we are having a meeting in Ethiopia. Will you want to be part of it? Of course, as a Nigerian, you don't just answer yes, but even though you would like to do that. So I said, Then the team lead said, okay, don't worry. In the evening, there is a cocktail, so come along, we'll get to know your decision. Of course, in the evening, I didn't even have to say anything. She just told me, you will be attending, and so. Now, that was the beginning of interventions. We won about $4 million grants, started with $2 million. And we started the digitalization, what was called retrospective conversion of the catalog, retro. And several of our staff had opportunity to travel to Ghana, to travel to the US, about 5 sets, going consistently on a yearly basis. So human capital was being developed, the collection was being digitized, and I'm saying this because when the library got bumped, what saved us was the digital collection of our catalog, because every other thing fried up, even the systems. It was actually the backups that we had away from the university that we were able to fall back to and started rebuilding. As if that was not enough, the data center, that's the computer center, also went up in flames a few months later. And our system, the repository, which was there, that had several collections, up to 6,000 items at that time, went up. And that one, we could not retrieve anything because the backup was placed on the server. The advantage with the main catalog was that we had the server, a spare server away. So I want to also urge us, as we are working hard and managing these things, let us also know the perils on the way, and let's try to avoid it. Let's learn from those who have had such challenges. The other thing we also need to know about librarians and the research office is that librarians are gateway in the university in terms of training and capacity to store, manage, and disseminate information. Librarians are the people to call, and you don't need to shout about it. But the question is, are we truly part of the research process in Nigerian universities? Do we have research offices? Are we part of the research committee? For many of us, probably we just hear that Office of Research and Development, they are doing this, they are doing that. When they report at Senate or when we see notices, memos by them, that should not be. The narrative has to change. And it will depend on you as a librarian to take the initiative, not combative. You know, you're not going to combat, but you are going to prayerfully assess the situation and make a case and ensure that you worm your way into these offices to change the narrative. One of the ways is you yourself being research compliant. How many of us actually carry out diligent due research? You know, the practice in many institutions is for senior colleagues to admin. That admin system will stop. Is cheating. It's unfair. You know, in this research development, we are talking of fair use. Now, you cannot engage in illegality and expect legality. No. So don't put fire under a thatched roof. We need to be able to engage in research that we turn the narrative, the conceptualization of research from compensation to innovation. Now, compensation, what I mean by that is I'm doing research and I'm writing because I want to be promoted. I want to be compensated. I want to apply for this. They need this number of papers, so I have to do this. No, you're only compensating yourself. You're not even developing your own capacity to be confident, to be sure of what you are doing. And it's different from being innovative. When you are innovative, whatever research you are carrying it out because you want to find something, a solution. And you know, when you do that, it's easier to write a paper because you are talking about what you have seen, what you have touched, what you have written, what you have interacted with. What is your own body? That's what you are writing. So you are not busy looking for topics. You know, I hear often people say, I want to write, but I don't know how to get topics. No. Topics are always that. What you are doing is researching. What is research? There is actually nothing new. That's, you know, the name is research. So, what is novel about that? It's been done before, and you are only researching. Maybe there is something that is different. You are in a different environment. You are applying different instruments. But we shouldn't just be researching for compensation. The danger of that to research data management is that you will have data that cannot be reused. You are mostly or likely to have data that if they get published, you are likely to be caught. So you now prefer to publish it in volume 1, number 1 of a local journal. You cannot go global. So you cannot be visible. And so that data, which you know you replicated without due acknowledgement, is useless. And so when they say, he has this number of papers, you are a mere local champion. You cannot go beyond this. And that's why, if I may say, the status and the way that we are regarded by our other principal officers is affected. Because they see us and they look at us and say, what are these people? But if, for instance, the Vice Chancellor, the officer you report to, keeps getting letters from international organizations and they say, please release this person, or they write you and copy him or her that she is needed for this meeting and we cannot do without that. You will earn a lot of respect. I had an officer who told me one day that, okay, why are they always inviting you? I also want to do, and the reason was I just returned from one. I spent about 3 weeks, and then while I was reporting to him that, well, I'm back, he said, well, have you seen this Prof? They are looking for you. They said you have to visit America for another 3 months. Hi. At one point, actually, I got tired of travel. Now, what was the matter? The matter was that we were just enjoying, I was actually enjoying my work. I enjoyed my work as a university librarian, even before. I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed carrying my own people along. But I would not admit to any paper, no. I will do my work. I would rather bring them, add them, not admit, add them. And then give them particular portions. Okay, you go and do this. Since I originated the topic, I can do the introduction. You go get the literature, and I say, okay, the literature, these are the areas. And then we will analyze the data together, we will sit together. In fact, there are some international journals today in SAGE and other similar publishing houses. If you collaborate to write, you must indicate the percentage, your own role, yes. Whether you develop the concept, you wrote the introduction or whatever, you have to do that. And so the data for such a research, do you think it can be lost? No. So we are training ourselves to be part of the research process. We are being compliant, and we are researching to innovate, not to compensate ourselves. You know, these researches live beyond us. And if you do it right, it will really be right. We have scattered research data on campus because of lack of synergy between the research office and the library. Now, I don't know how many of us have research offices, but if you don't have, the onus is on you as a librarian to actually initiate this aggregation of data, organization, and sharing. That's why we are promoting openness through institutional repository and other programs that are coming up, which is what Nuli and Onu have actually been working frankly about. How then do we overtake or overcome the randomization of research? What I mean by randomization of research is that many of our researches, because we do not track those that have been done before now, anybody wakes up and just wants to do something. Whereas some have already done that using the same methodology, but under different lecturers. That lecturer has left the department. Another one has come. That person, there is no record, no even list in the department to link a project to a staff. If you go back to your schools now and ask maybe the faculty, that's lecturers or department, say, please, can you give me a list of your student projects since the inception of your department? I don't know how many you will have. And for some of us who have worked in LIS department, how many of us even keep that record that you can say in this particular year, this one wrote this, and so the topics. So when they now bring another, in another year, we want to assign topics, you can now go through. And this thing should be open to the students to know that they've already researched on this and this. So you are limited to a different thing, except you want to tweak the topic or the research that you want to go into. So institutional mandates are very key. That is, what is it that the institution, your own institution, has as its goal? We need to be able to follow that. Otherwise, everybody will go anywhere. We will become wild, just like an animal that is not tamed, that is not confined. And that's why you see so many of our researches, publications going anywhere. No standard, no organization. And when we now get the results, nobody is obligated to the institution because the institution didn't follow up. The institution didn't have any input. So one of the assignments that we as university librarians have to do is to focus and coordinate research efforts, and it's achievable. We thank God for the National Research Foundation, which TEDFON is sponsoring. So our executive secretary hereby represented, we want to thank you for that initiative, which now begins to refine the areas of focus. And so they put down money and say, this year, we want you to research into this area. You, this institution, research into this for national development. Now, human capital development. Of course, without being obvious, is critical for successful delivery of research data management. And as we've said earlier, librarians should be part of all institutional trainings on research. No, you have to lobby, you have to ensure that that happens. Because they cannot be trained and say is lecturers in this department, whichever department. At least we have library liaisons lecturer, librarians. Let them liaise with the lecturers who are liaising with the library and ensure that they are part of any trainings on research. University librarians need to advocate for the library's principal role in these research activities. This may be a new beginning for some of us, but beyond that, librarians should strategically, and I'm being careful in my choice of words, we should strategically improve our own research competencies through formal and informal trainings. When we send our staff out for conferences, let be strategic conferences that will add value. Let them report back. let us organize trainings in-house on this focus area, and we should pursue it vigorously. So, as we round up, what next? We have said many things along the way, even practical steps, but maybe we should recapture them. That all should agree on a leadership position for librarians in the research process in Nigerian universities. Now, I'm emphasizing agreement because there has to be a deliberateness. Whether you are going to have a committee or whatever, and you design the metrics, the parameters that, okay, this is what we are going to do to accomplish proper management of research data. If it's going to be thesis, we will do this. If it's going to be grant-aided researches, this is what we will do. For undergraduate, for non-graduate, for academic staff, this is how we organize it. For those who are already advanced in digitization, this is what we would expect. For those who are not yet up there, this is the service as a tool that we can render to them. ONU should clearly mark out the areas of data to manage in universities. We had the fiscal one, like I mentioned, that was assigned in the 80s, but now that is digital environment, we can do so many things. So that when we need resources, it's just to say, okay, go to this website, it's open, it's available. And these accreditation teams will not need to come and be tormenting us. They don't have to be. I don't want to say that some appear arrogant, some are illiterate digitally. Yes. Some came to the library when I was university librarian, and I deliberately followed them after briefing the librarian. I deliberately went out because I immediately observed that amongst the team, some were quite knowledgeable on IT, some, because my first introduction that we are welcome, you will find most of our resources online. And I saw someone murmuring that we are not talking about, I want to see something physical. We want to see your digital library. And in my office, I said, okay, you will see this is what we have here. I said, that's our digital, because what is digit? Digit is what you will see, you don't touch it, but it's available. And there is no digital library. There is no electronic library as a room. He said, no, take us to your electronic library. I said, this is the electronic. What you are seeing here, that is it. And then when we got to the shelf, he saw a book. It was just 1 year before they visited it and it was working. He said, is this the only one? And is there no current one? I said, then we took them to the computer lab and said, okay, please feel free on your own to confirm whatever, because we have already also printed out the databases, and those that needed, that had passwords, we gave them, please search on your own. The lead team was just, it's like people are wasting my time. It's physical things I want. Anyway, thank God for a lady there, a lady prof. Women are wonderful. She just said, Prof, I have seen it, it's working. They have these resources. The man kept saying, no, it's, but they don't have the physical. She said, Prof, they already have it, it's accessible. Because the essence of digitization is that it's more visible, it's more accessible to a larger audience. You are looking for one volume. But now we have several people that can access the one volume at a time. the same time, real time. So, but please don't fight them. Forgive them. They don't know what they are doing. They will understand one day. But the essence of what I'm saying is that we should also collectively defend ourselves, so that if one institution is lacking in something, you can easily link. Because what we also did on several of our own accreditation visits is to harvest some of these free resources from different libraries, both within Nigeria and abroad, or link them. In some, we have to write and say, please, can you permit us to link to your institution? We need to do that. So there should be an agreement on the types of skills to be acquired by librarians for effective RDM. If you get the main paper, and I'm sure it's probably been pushed to your system, you will find some of these skills is very important. Then training on RDMS that's research data management systems, is also critical. There are some systems that we need to acquire, but that's not the main thing. It's first of all, our own readiness. Then librarians should train researchers on how to manage their research data. When we do this training, they will not just go and be copying and pasting. Researchers will not just be randomized, that you just pick anything for promotion and you forget about it for life. No, life is not like that. You should consistently follow up. Those who are winning Nobel Prizes, there are people who have stayed on a particular problem over years, decades for some, and suddenly you find solution. That's why you see most of the Nobel Prize winners are very aged, over 70, 80, because they have been checking their data, Who was that person who tried 999 times before he got the solution? You know, when they asked him, he said, no, those 999 was to show that that's not the way. So let's see our deterrence in a positive and not negativity. And let's go with that mindset and get people to know that whatever you are doing, we are going to hold you responsible for it. In conclusion, research data management is of prime need in our institutions. I believe we agree to that. And it helps us to eradicate unnecessary duplication and plagiarism. It helps in identifying potential interdisciplinary studies, because when people get to know, I go to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia 1 year, and after we did the introduction, I did a presentation, somebody walked up to me and he said, Stephen Akintunde, I'm glad to meet you face to face. And I look, and do you know him, Professor in Ghana, Professor Alemna, yes. I said, Prof, I'm happy to see you two face to face. Now, and there are several other things we got doing together after that time. So at the end, when we are able to do this, it also helps us in interdisciplinary, intercontinental, intercountry, intra, everything together. Then capacity building, see, is necessary and is a derivative of research data management. Competency in RDM is most likely to attract funding for library projects. So most of our tiers will be wiped away, just like ours was wiped away when these people now intervened. And it's a growing thing. Up to today, we're still growing. The good thing about all this is that, you see, when you catch the attention of some of these foreign funders, they connect you to another. They connect you to another. And that was the opportunity some of us have had over time. So as you are appearing at this, as you are talking about it, they say, okay, we have a similar project. Can you join us? Will you be part of us? One of the projects I'm involved in, I was nominated by somebody from Southern Africa. I didn't know. Presently. And she just wrote that, oh no, this person should be the one that should take that sector. And so it keeps going, but it has to be you first developing yourself. I want to thank you very much for this great opportunity.